We're anticipating the Western Cape High Court to deliver its judgment regarding President Cyril Ramaphosa's impeachment committee. In fact, Ramaphosa's urgent bid to halt Parliament's impeachment committee is aimed at pausing the work of the committee for about 3 months in anticipation of his application to review the Section 89 independent panel report, which found that he may have a case to answer in the theft that took place at his Phala Phala farm. The matter was heard over 2 days by a full bench of the Western Cape Division just last week. We are watching developments for you both inside and outside the court. And in fact, we'll get you a sense of how things are looking inside in just a moment. Relatively quiet for now as we anticipate all the different stakeholders, for lack of a better term, to make their way in. But outside is quite a bit of a hive of activity. This is that visual inside court, as I mentioned earlier today. Oliver Dickson is our anchor stationed outside and is engaging people who, Oliver, I imagine are watching this with a keen interest, including the political parties that have a voice not only in Parliament but also in this committee.
Yeah, Ayanda, you might see flowers in the back of our shot today here at the court. It is not because anyone's celebrating the judgment that we're anticipating here, it's just because it's admissions day at the court today. And so there's a lot of young, aspiring attorneys and advocates who are being admitted to court today, which gives a sense of busyness at the court. It's an important day for those young people today, but it's also an important day for democracy and the accountability mechanisms of our country. I have with me now Mabine Siyabe, who is the spokesperson for Zansi. Now, Zansi is not a party to the application and matter that was heard. However, Ghana Magashule is the chairperson of the impeachment committee, and he is, of course, a member of parliament deployed by Zansi. There's, of course, a separation between the position of the party and the position of the chairperson of the committee. I've got Mabine with me here. Mabine, of course, we can't assume that the position of the chairperson of the impeachment committee is the position of the party. There is a little bit of a separation there. What is the official position of the party on the impeachment, or at least the interim interdict that's been sought here?
Well, I mean, today, as you've clearly stated, is an important test for accountability, transparency, as well as the rule of law. Our constitution is a living document and ever evolving, and I think today is one of those days that will test the mechanisms in the constitution. We believe that should an interdict be provided, we'll abide by the rule of law. But should that interdict not be provided, it'll be a clear sense. The signal that is being sent is that no one is above the law, and that anyone must subject themselves to the rule of law. And even this court hearing has said that we're going to use that those involved are going to use all mechanisms available to them. So ultimately, today is a test for democracy. It's a celebration of our democracy, and whatever the outcome is, I believe all parties should abide by it.
Yeah. Of course, one has to ask the question, how much is democracy being inconvenienced if the court grants that interim interdict today and that the president would have won this matter? Given that it doesn't say the work will not happen, it just says the work will not happen right now, we might have to wait a month or a few months.
There are three arms of the state, so I don't think we can ever say that one arm of the state inconveniences democracy. They all play vital roles in democracy, and today the court will clearly state with the role that it plays, whether it provides that interdict or it doesn't provide the interdict. And there's even a third way in that there's a partial interdict of the process. But at the end of the day, our constitution stands firm. The practices of our constitution, the principles of our constitutions will stand firm.
Just to step away from this matter a little bit, today is also the deadline for parties to submit to the committee their position on the draft terms of reference and the rules to this. And the contentious issue there is whether or not the president should be called to give evidence before the committee and not through a representative. What will be the submission of Zansi today?
Well, I mean, as Zansi, we of course chair that committee, and we've got one member of that committee. Therefore, we'll not be making a submission. But ultimately, the president is a creature of the Constitution. He's a creature, he was elected by the National Assembly. Therefore, he must subject himself to its mechanisms. If he's called to testify before that committee, he must do so willingly as a creature of the Constitution and the National Assembly.
Mabine, thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate it. That's Mabine Siyabe from Rise Zansi. I want to bring into the conversation now Vuyelwa Zungula of the ATM. Now, the ATM is in fact a respondent in this matter and an application and a respondent in the review application that's to be heard in September. Zungula, what will be the position of the party? And I know we're speculating here, but if the president finds favor in court today and he is granted that interim interdict, what's the next step forward for ATM as a respondent and a member of the impeachment committee?
Look, we would find some issues if the president were to find favor, especially because there's precedence that the courts, the very same court, by the way, that they ruled in the Advocate Mkhwebane case, courts cannot stop Parliament from doing what they are constitutionally obligated to do, which is to hold the president, the executive accountable, because an impeachment process is an accountability mechanism. So courts can't then want to stop Parliament from instituting those accountability mechanisms. But if he finds favor, we're going to sit down with our legal team and then make a decision thereafter.
Not to relitigate the matter, but that Mkhwebane matter, as case law came up in argumentation, at least in considerations of the precedents in question. And the difference there, at least as stated in court last week, is that in this instance, the impeachment committee exists entirely because of the Section 89 panel report, the Ngobo report, and that the Ngobo report validity matters for the existence of this committee. And so it's important to hear the Ngobo report first, or at least the review application thereon. Surely that must be something worth considering.
Look, even in the impeachment process of Advocate Mkhwebane, it does not start with a committee. It starts with a panel that determines whether there's a case to answer or the process of impeachment should proceed. So it is not fundamentally different, because even with Advocate Mkhwebane, the impeachment process, the Section 194, was not the first was not the first step of the process. It came after a report was issued by an independent panel, even in that case. So there's nothing different. It is the same principle. The only difference here is that in the Constitution, for a president, it's Section 89. For heads of Chapter 9 institutions, it's Section 194. But the principle remains the same.
Yeah. And just lastly, to step away from this matter a little bit, today is also the deadline for parties to submit to the chairperson recommendations, or at least their final considerations on the draft terms of reference. And one of the contentious issues is whether or not the president should be called to give evidence. What will be the submission of ATM on that?
Yeah, the president must come and account, because remember, the issue of a Section 89 process, it is a mechanism to hold him accountable. Therefore, he cannot delegate the responsibility of being held accountable to any person. Secondly, you can't have an inquiry about misconduct of a person and you don't ask that person to come and answer for whatever that is put before him. So that is why it is important for him to come, clear his name, and for us as members of Parliament to put questions to him, so that it does not become a hearsay argument. But if he comes and personally comes, then we know that we are getting from the horse's mouth as to what transpired.
Yeah. Vuyelwa, thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate it. We'll chat to you after judgment has been handed out. That's Vuyelwa Zungula, the representative of the ATM in this matter. They are a respondent in this interim interdict application, as well as in the review application, a part A to this, if you will.